Deputy Paul Murphy now to conclude, please.
Thanks. I agree with those last statements, if nothing else, Minister. Unfortunately, the debate in 2004 was not based on facts. It was not based on reason. It was not based on logic. It was based on ideology. And I don't at all say, and we don't say, that those who voted for the change in citizenship laws in 2004 were racist, or certainly the vast majority of them weren't racist. But I do say that the argumentation used by the establishment political parties, with Fianna Fáil and the PDs in the vanguard of that, and Fine Gael trailing slightly behind, was racist. It was a playing of the race card in a deliberately, divisive way to distract from the real crises in public services caused by that government's policies and the capitalist system. And I would also say that, to be honest, I was a bit surprised by the tone and the content of the Minister's response. I expected the Minister would oppose the bill, but I thought the Minister would oppose the bill in the kind of Fianna Fáil manner of, well, we do see what the problem is and so on, and we seek to address it. But the Minister, I felt I'd gone through a time machine back to 2004 because precisely the same card was played by the Minister. The essence of what the Minister said is self-evident. The proposed amendment, which actually is the bill, but was passed by this House, had the direct consequence of attracting more people to the state. The consequential strain on our own state services, including existing immigration provision, housing, education, medical services and welfare, would need to be carefully assessed. And on that basis, the Minister says they wouldn't provide a money message. Throughout the speech of the Minister and the response of the Minister, the same argument with no factual basis of anchor babies, of birth tourism, was present. And it's very unfortunate that the Minister chooses to engage in those same argumentation and to ignore what has happened over the 14 years that have passed. To ignore the cases of injustice, for example, the case of Nonso, that in the Minister's own constituency, which he spoke out about, the case of Oireachtas, which has been referred to, the other cases. The only kind of reference that the Minister made to those is that he said that I have discretion to deal with each case made on its merits and frequently exercised in favour of a child and his or her family where claims are substantiated on humanitarian grounds to remain in the country. That is a deeply unsatisfactory situation. I salute all of those who've been involved in campaigns. It's excellent. It's because of them that it has pushed the situation on. It's seen in the opinion polls and so on, and they prevented the deportation of those children. That's excellent. But to have that as part of the system, that you have to petition the Minister, you have to hope maybe you have a Fine Gael minister in your constituency who might feel some pressure on the issue, and then to hope that the Minister for Justice will see the wisdom of your own particular case. It's barbaric. It's reminiscent of a feudal system, of the need to petition the king for your own particular situation. We need a just system, which means an end to these cases of injustice, and the only way to achieve that is to get rid of the discrimination which currently starts from day zero, from the very day of birth. In relation to the points made by Fianna Fáil, because they went more on the cases, well, we understand the particular cases, etc. That's also a recipe for them to take a position in favour of individual children whenever they're under pressure in particular constituencies, but to avoid supporting legislation like this. I would say to Fianna Fáil, well, if they admit that there's a problem, what are they going to do about it? What are they going to say? And obviously they're not here to answer. What are they going to say to the children in the gallery? How are they going to deal with the injustices which result from their change of policies? On the point about the referendum, and this is somehow undemocratic, one, it relates to the wording of the referendum, which Deputy O'Callaghan was very clear on, in terms of it's very clear that it says provision can be made by law. But the second point is that 14 years have passed. People are entitled to change their mind. And the indication in terms of opinion polls is that people have changed their mind because they've seen the reality of what this means, the reality of the injustices. And in 3 or 4 years' time, when these children begin to become 18, the reality will be even more clear, will be even more widespread when you have a divergence in terms of the rights of the two children with the same path in life, except for the fact of where their parents came from. Incredibly unfair. On some of the other argumentation made against the bill, one argumentation made against it is Brexit. I don't think we're going to be able to raise anything, any issue for any rights for any section of people in the country are going to be able to be raised without Brexit being said as the reason that we can't do it. I mean, the latest we had during the week was the nurses. The government can't pay the nurses because of Brexit. Well, the government says it can't end discrimination against a group of children in our country because of Brexit. But if you think about it for a moment, it doesn't hold any water. One, the idea that women who are like close to 9 months pregnant are going to hop on planes to come to Belfast in order to have a baby so the baby can have citizenship, right? Can have EU citizenship. So one, that's not going to happen, the difficulties involved in that. But two, what extra rights does the Minister think will accrue to the parents in those situations? That have the right to remain in Ireland? Okay, but Ireland and Britain are in a common travel area. They'll have the right to travel and come to Ireland in any case post Brexit. And they wouldn't have a right to remain in another European country. So it doesn't hold any water, and it's just an attempt not to engage in it. The other argument being that Ireland has this super liberal approach to migration, and if we change the law here, well then the flocks, the birth tourism, etc., is going to come here. So it is true that we would be the only European Union country to have the right to birth citizenship, as it was the case before 1st of January 2005. But lots of countries, US, Canada, New Zealand, many other countries have such a situation. But in many other respects, the Irish state lags behind other European Union countries. Deputy Barry made the point in relation to the UN Commission and the fact that the Irish government has to answer for the absence of a process to regularisation, various processes of which exist in other European countries. Or the other point being the point about direct provision, and I have to come back to Minister on this, and obviously we should debate the question of direct provision again. I mean, firstly, the idea that direct provision is not racist, and the Minister took offence at Deputy Barry describing direct provision as racist. I mean, if you go to a direct provision centre, you will not find an Irish person in a direct provision centre. The direct provision and the having of people in these horrific conditions of poverty and so on, of which some people are making huge profit off, disgustingly, does not apply to Irish people. It only applies to people outside of Ireland who have come here. The Minister can come up with his own definition of racism to try and take that out of there. The second, the idea that it's some sort of attractive situation for people to be in direct provision, it's not. And okay, people have a choice not to be there, but they only have the right to work under quite limited circumstances. The Minister says, what's your alternative? The alternative is very simple. Give people rights, give them the right to work, give them the right to access services, treat them as human beings, entitled to all the rights and decencies of other human beings in this country, regardless of where they came from or how they came. The final point I will make is a slightly broader point, which is about the use of citizenship as an exclusionary concept. And that's unfortunately what the 2004 referendum was about. That was the context or the point around which the race card was played, divisive rhetoric was used. We should be completely against it. There's no need for that exclusionary concept of citizenship. It's a thoroughly reactionary idea. It's very simple. People who are born here should be entitled to the right to citizenship. People who grow up here should be entitled to citizenship. We should not be discriminating on this basis. We should be rejecting the divide and rule rhetoric which lies behind it, and we should be building joint struggles of all ordinary people for the kind of society and kind of lives that people are entitled to.